Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Jacobson. I've been involved in virtual reality for more than 20 years, and this is an incredible time to be alive for me and all of us, really. I was at SVVR, running around like a 3-year-old on a sugar high you couldn't believe, just taking in the VR. And today I work as a consultant through my company, Enterprise VR, and I fart around and help everybody. I'm getting a little feedback.
Better if you aim it, just get closer to it.
Okay, how's that?
Yep, that's good.
Okay, great. And Christopher Grafe at Sensory Interactive contributed links to a lot of these fairly incredible video mapping videos that you'll see a bit later. He also happens to be my husband. And so let's get started. Let's see. So what is large-scale, what is immersive imagery? By immersive, I mean that it's surrounding you, right? So that it creates a world that you didn't exist, that you weren't in before. And that can be completely surrounding you with video, like a planetarium or a VR cave, or it could be a large projection that extends the physical world into the video world, into the imaginary world. And there are a few things you have to do in a narrative sense to make that work, which you'll see in this presentation. It's great for theaters and performances. It can also be done with very large screens if you can afford, a $1 million wall of LCDs. And of course, things that move are always better. Here, let me just move this a bit closer so I can mouse. So a little bit about terminology. Virtually, these days, almost anything cool is called VR, which is a problem. If something surrounds your senses, at least your visual sense, and it makes you feel like you're somewhere else, then it's VR. There's something else that's called VR. It's Second Life, World of Warcraft, and that is great. It's one of the best things you could ever do with yourself and your time, but it really is. But it's really a different thing. You can tell I'm old school. Now, if something extends your current world, adding to it with digital objects, then it's augmented reality or mixed reality. Those terms are equivalent. They're used a little differently. You can do it with AR glasses like Google Glass or Meta VR, where you have something drawn on the lenses. So it's like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, an animated character in your world. Or again, you project on something that creates a digital object in the room. Now, to make this work, to understand this, you have to understand that we don't live in physical reality. We live in psychological space, right? Just the room that you're in right now, the way you interact with it emotionally, with the space and with each other, has to do with the way the room was designed. Social space is real. And so we respond to things physically. We physically respond to things that are not physically there all the time. And that's not just because of who we are as human beings, it's computationally necessary. So if anybody here is into cognitive science or computer science, come talk to me afterward and I'll fill you in on that. Let's see. So immersive visuals, well, that got started in the 19th century with these panoramicons, also these kind of carnival rides, like the Tunnel of Love, where you're surrounded by these physical props. And of course, today we can do it visually. I think almost everyone here has been inside a planetarium. And today, all the planetariums have gone digital. So they're showing movies, interactive content, you name it. Right here at MIT, a graduate student, I think in the late 80s, invented an inflatable digital dome. There are now thousands of these in the US, Europe, and Australia, and elsewhere, traveling around, usually being taken to elementary schools for virtual field trips. You can have a front-facing personal dome. If any of you are hackers, look up this guy. He's got the code for you. And then, of course, there's your classic cave, which was invented in '91 by Sandin and DeFanti, added to by Carolina Krasnera. And to get the full effect, you really need to be wearing the glasses, that give you the stereoscopic effect, which is turned off for this photograph. You know where the walls of the cave are, but you can just imagine they're not there. Here's a cave that I built years ago at the medical school at University of Pittsburgh. It was for investigating balance disorders. And then here you can have a cylinder, which is better than a cave or a cube because you don't have corners. Now, in this case, you have a building. These arrows represent airflow, and you have these two people who are sitting down. Now, because they're sitting, they're not really spatially involved in the virtual space. It's like they're outside looking in. So that's crucial. Here is a piece of architecture in the same cylinder, but they're standing up, and everything is projected at life scale. So in terms of the sort of the interactive narrative or the implied narrative, they are a part of the scene. Then, of course, a driving simulator, right? This is much easier than making screens out of the windows and more realistic. And then you've got rooms like this. It's kind of a cave. It can be used as a cave here. The scene puts you on the beach, but it's intended for very important executives to be able to talk about lots of information. And the information is mirrored on both sides. This is an installation at Pfizer, built by Scalable Displays, costs $1 gazillion. That's a quick tour. Now we'll talk about immersion and interaction with a giant single screen. Well, you can have large interactive touch displays. These are great for public installations. They're good for when you want to grope some data. They're not so great if you want to travel around in a virtual space, because in a virtual space, you want to be standing back from it, not have your face up in it. But still, these are very useful. Here's one by my friends at the Small Lab in Arizona. This guy and this kid are throwing these two glowing balls, and the projection screen is the ground. And so all of the equations of the physics of throwing those balls is projected onto the floor. So it's a great way to teach the kids physics. What it's doing is it's making visual kind of these imaginary lines of force that you might be thinking of when you're a physicist looking at real objects. So here you have just a simple projection screen, right? Done with just an ordinary projector, an ordinary computer. That character, this guy, is actually a digital puppet controlled by a puppeteer off stage. And he's talking, breaking the fourth wall, with this live person. So that's where, it's really the narrative that's carrying the ball. And the technology, of course, is there. It's making it possible. And then this one is a bit more sophisticated. It's the Egyptian Oracle project, was funded by the National Endowment for Humanities. And we have a book out by Bloomsbury, so go buy it. And I'll show you a video from the performance. All right, ooh, that worked. Okay. So again, live puppeteer off stage.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Temple of Horus.
Live actress introduces the temple.
This shrine has a statue of a woman. There's Horus with a hot pen right there.
Oh, yes.
Will you ask the god if my brother Bakanefe will ever get better? He's been sick for so long and we've been really worried about him.
Only the god Horus knows the truth of our health and of our lives.
So the boat's...
Please, as this is such a serious crime, will you...
Sorry. We forgot to leave the answer in the last clip. So in ancient Egypt, they actually did this in their late period, where the spirit of the god of the temple is in that sacred boat. In the boat is a statue of the god, and the spirit of the god will move the boat to answer questions posed by the priest. And this guy, who's actually my father-in-law, is a volunteer from the audience, and he's playing the part of an accused water thief. So the god is going to decide if he's guilty or innocent.
State your case?
Any breach in the water system was by accident. It is not my doing, and I was out in my field this morning and it's as dry as my neighbor's.
Well, only Horus knows the truth. Rejoice, sir, for Horus has cleared your name.
Thank you.
There are moments in Egyptian scripture where they would have the boat choose between different people for some honor or some role,
Sacred boat shall choose. You, in the hoodie, you shall play the part of Isis. Rejoice!
So that's a key moment for the audience. That's when they realize that the priest isn't an AI and he's not recorded. He's actually, there's a person behind him or guiding intelligence. Oh, Egyptian applause. The Egyptians do this, and the men do that. Oh. Anyway, we did this at a school, and the kids were doing that all day to each other. No one's done more in this than Josephine Anstey and David Pape at University of Buffalo. I'm not going to play the video because it takes a long time to get into, but I've posted the PDF for this talk online, so you can follow the links and watch the entire video. Here, she's having an interaction with this virtual character who's taking her on a quest, and he's kind of an awful creature, and it's all very emotionally involved. She's been at this for 15, 20 years. Now we move on to projection mapping events and outdoor theater, which is a great deal of fun. This is a video by a Japanese dance troupe, and it wants to be bigger than the screen. So here we go. Like I said, the videos are posted online, and so you can watch them at your leisure. This is really impressive work they've done. This also is another work by Materials and Methods. It's projecting onto the fairly flat front of a basilica, but they do use the geometry a bit. So as you see, now in the first, you get this. So that is projected onto the front. This bulb is not inside. The church crumbled and fell down. The darkest parts are sticking up. And the physical church is still there, shadowy in the background. So the video part has become more real than the physical. Projecting just like it was a screen. For goodness. Chris and his team did that under contract for Mr. Grants. All right. And in this next one, you have, well, I'll just play it. Whoops. If I can get it Is interrupting these videos driving you guys absolutely batty? Because I'm doing it so we can see more. Let's see. Here we go.
Buenos días, señores y señoritas. Mi nombre es Don Tristan de Luna y Ariana. I am from Spain. We are taking over Pensacola, but don't worry, because us, the Spanish, will take good care of you. We will provide you with... Who has the audacity to interrupt Don Tristan de Luna y Arellano?
Jean-Baptiste Lemoine de Bienville, directement de la Louisiane, directly from Louisiana.
What can I do for you, Señor Bienville?
Give me Pensacola.
That's what I love about the French. They are so delusional.
You have 10 seconds.
Or else,
J'ai une musquette.
do you even know how to use it, that thing?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Is that the best that you can do? Your musket is very powerful.
I think you get the idea. There's a lot being done with this in Broadway for theater troupes. In fact, the name paintscaping.com is instructive of the company that makes this. Let's see. This is a video by Ralph Lauren that is, just straight up incredible. And it's very long, so I'm just going to skip through it a bit. But you'll notice how they use the physical geometry of the building in some places and then go way outside of it in other places. Smorgasbord there. And here's one for a Sony PlayStation. It assumes that you have some kind of incredible projection system in your living room, at the very least. Try that again. Sorry. Try that again. So this is all projected. I don't think the guys come with the box. Maybe they do, you know. That would be fun. Here's a little bit from Sydney Opera House. Again, it's very long. I'll just play a little bit of it. And of course, this is on a colossal scale. Pretty unusual. And last but not least, there's this video, which is not immersive at all, but I just have to show it to you because it's so astonishingly cool. What's happening is the guy has a flat surface, actually two of them, that are mounted on a kind of an armature. So he's able to move this flat surface around, and the computer tracks the surface and projects onto it. Let me just jump ahead to, whoops. I need a better way to do this here. Oh, no. Try that again. Here we go. Oh, that didn't work. There we go. A lot of how this works, these illusions, the why they work, is the mind's need for closure, the mind's need to complete any dashed lines or dotted lines. So if I were to draw a square, but the middle section was missing out of each side of the square, you say it's a square, not 4 independent corners. And in there, when he has his 2 screens, and the object disappears from one and appears in the next, it feels to you like it's teleported because your mind just really wants to complete things, wants to match the music with what you're seeing, for example. That's what makes puppeteering work. By the way, if you ever want to blow your mind, go to the Puppet Showplace Theater in Brookline or any other good puppet show and watch what they do for the 4-year-old kids. It'll blow your mind how sophisticated it really is. And very instructive if you're doing anything with avatars and so forth. So there you are. Again, I've posted this, links to all these videos, and right here, and I'll take questions. Yes? Okay.
I was wondering if in those large-scale video mapping
Yes.
or,
Yes.
situations, do they do like albedo or color correction? Do they make the projected image compensate for the variations of the surface they're projecting onto?
Oh, yes, there's a lot of art involved. I forgot to mention, there's a group here in Boston. Here we go, Illuminous Boston. A lot of cyber arts people were there. They did a big show in Southie. So follow that link. Let's see. Yes, so there are a number of software packages you can use that you can use to read the surface that you're projecting on. Say you're projecting on a cube or a car or something that will help you do your projection mapping. But at the end of the day, it's really about making art on the surface using the projector as your brush. So you could do it just straight up projecting on there and drawing. Some people do that. And certainly when you're ready to perform well, depending on what the lighting conditions are, you want to adjust the brightness, the color, the contrast, everything. Yes, the number. Yes, hi, George.
On the front page of today's Globe was an article about Brown University's yurt, basically a rebuilt cave on steroids.
Yes.
And so my question to you is are immersive environments coming back because of head-mounted VR sets? Are people getting more interested in that at an institutional level, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Because the head-mounted displays are cheap and available and everybody, and it's gaining all this press, it's created interest in large-scale displays and projection displays, caves, domes, everything, because it's all VR, it's all immersive, and that's just a wonderful thing. I like HMDs, but large-scale projection has kind of always been my first love. Yes. A number of hands went up earlier. I will say, adding to a previous question, the brighter the projector you have, the more it can overwhelm the geometry of what you're projecting on. And that helps for smoothing over cracks. Yes?
It seems to me like most of the demos that you show are like prohibitively expensive to anyone outside like commercial interest. Is that true?
Not the first three. The two dancers here. This one. That is just a regular projector. A projector and a film and two dancers. You can do it for just on borrowed equipment, and it's brilliant and amazing. You probably want a bright one. Yeah. Let's see. Same with that one. That's just a cheapo. And this. And even the outdoor projection mapping, you need a really bright projector. That is expensive. But if it's fairly small scale, you can use a regular one. So, yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a very interesting distinction, like
Mm.
those people standing versus standing down or sitting down.
Oh, yes.
What concerns are different between those two things, and how do you bridge the gap between merely having an installation and having something immersive?
Right. Well, here we go. This is, you're referring to this versus this, where they're using exactly the same installation, but their physical narrative is different. I mean, I would call this immersive, certainly, what they're doing here, because, you know, they're surrounded by the imagery. But this is more immersive, because they're standing up, everything is life-size, and so forth. So it's not the medium as much as what you do with it. Did that answer your question, or?
I was asking a little bit about what are the things that make something immersive versus like, it is partially the content here, so you would say it's because the viewpoint is at a human eye level and everything is scaled to you, for instance, but
Right.
I'm sure there are other things.
Right. Well, immersive is a slippery term. You know, if you're surrounded by something, you're immersed in it. I suppose it would be better for me to say, if you're in a spatially contiguous immersive narrative, where you're treating the imaginary space that's projected on the wall as a continuation of the physical space. That's what I like. So thank you. I will refine. I'll try to think of a less cumbersome term for that. That.
I'm going to email you about this.
Okay, yeah, please come talk to me. Probably the more extreme example of it is this and this and this, you know, where it's just a simple projection, but you know, you have a really intense back and forth. So, well, we have a fair bit of time. Now I feel, oh yeah.
There was that demo you showed where there was a student interacting with the physics simulation.
Yes, yes.
And you showed like glowing balls. Was that actually part of the projection, or was that a
Yes.
physical object?
Yes, those glowing balls are physical. They're lit up from inside, and they're lit up so that the camera can track them. This was done 6, 7 years ago, and sort of a virtual shadow of the ball is projected onto the floor, along with the equations and so forth. So there's kind of no limit to what you could do with this. Yeah.
I guess most of the demos you've shown are not necessarily interactive.
The ones toward the end, yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Do you think interaction is a key quality of virtual reality, or
Oh,
do without?
oh, absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, if it's not interactive, it's not virtual reality. That's why I titled the talk Immersive Visual Experiences, you know. So part of what I'm doing with this talk is trying to get out of my own comfort zone, you know, and show you these amazing videos. But yes, if it's VR, it needs to be interactive, and interaction dominates everything. I mean, it can look like crap, but if it's responding to you, it becomes so much more real. You know, that's why if you go down to the Cyber Arts Gallery, you know, you can see work done by people from years ago that'll just rivet you, you know, even though it's a moving pixel, because there's something emotionally salient about it. And that takes some art, takes some doing. Yes?
So on the projection mapping side,
Yes.
and I missed a little bit of the talk because of organizer duties, but on the projection mapping side, has anyone ever done specifically projection mapping onto a person? And the person's been very careful and not moved.
I think I saw that somewhere, and I can't tell you where. And now And now I can't sleep until I find it. One of the very first video mapping things ever done is in the 80s by Disney, where they had these stationary heads and they were projecting faces of people singing on the heads. And it's really freaky and powerful. It's in Vegas, or at least I saw it in Vegas like 20 years ago. But you could definitely project onto a person, absolutely. There's no reason you couldn't.
It's a pretty prominent element of the Haunted Mansion ride.
Is it?
Both their parks.
Awesome.
Projection mapping. Like, yeah, I mean, you can call it projection mapping. They did it so long ago that
Oh, the
it
heads.
is the same technique. It's the same thing.
Right.
And Jeffrey,
Yeah.
recently in the New York Times, there was a dance review of a dance performer whose costume was projection mapped on him while he was performing.
Brilliant. Brilliant. New York Times dance review. Any keywords you can?
I can dig it up and send it to you.
I'd love that. That'd be great. Yeah. The two Japanese dancers came close to that. Yeah. Yes.
Are there any legal issues with just going and projecting onto your friend's house or something?
Yes. Just make sure your friends are okay with that. This event at Illuminous Boston with the church, that got shut down at 10 because of a city noise ordinance. You know, in Boston, I heard there was some trouble with the union, you know, wanting to be involved, but I don't know if there's anything to that. Yeah. Generally, just get permission from everybody you can, or just do it. I recommend either way, not in between. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but which union?
I don't know. I should keep my mouth shut till I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. On that score. Yes? Emotive face, I'm sorry. Omote. Omote face projection. Okay.
And it's done by some Japanese team. They put like tracking spot on human
Yeah.
face, and then they track it and then they project.
Ah, that's excellent. That's excellent. I'll look that up as soon as possible. Yes, sir.
For immersive experiences, I mean, I can see this, like, certainly a very large part is the visual properties, but for like audio or sound, things like that, are those also important to get right?
Is that a question? Well, yes, absolutely. Sound is 50% of the experience, and it tends to get about 5% of the effort for a lot of VR and VR-like projects. The projection mapped projects tend to pay a lot of attention to sound, mainly because they're making movies. And so when you're not interacting with something, it's got to be really good to hold your attention. In VR, spatialized sound, spatialized audio is really important. If you use Unity, you can use VisiSonics software that has a nice sound engine that's easy to use. Or if you're more of a hacker, you can just go straight into the Fmod libraries that underlies Unity. You can actually create an acoustic simulation of a space. So you can run around in there and make noises and hear the echoes. And depending on how much compute power you want to use, the echoes can be more and more realistic. And that's tremendously important. There's a, yeah. Oh, the, oh, yeah, the projection onto the Parliament building. That was the Ralph Lauren one, I think. Okay, oh, the Canadian Parliament, yeah. Okay. Yes, yes. That was, for the record, that was projection onto the Canadian Parliament for, was it for New Year or something?
I think they do it all summer.
In summer.
All summer they do it, just I think maybe every day.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and then we need to set up for the next guy. And I'll be around, of course. You can bug me. All right. Thank you very much for coming.